We'd like to welcome everybody to Stress Free Living today. I'm Ray Samich along with Ratanjit and Ray. Ratanjit, how are you today?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Feeling better every day. More excited because the calendar days keep going by, and all the people that live in the north of Ohio or anywhere around the country that are experiencing winter know that every day it gets a little bit warmer, a little bit sunnier, and it just makes us all feel a little bit brighter every day. So,
A
feeling
little
good
longer.
and happy to be with you.
Wonderful.
Now, you have titled today's show, and we want to give full disclosure to our audience. We really have not talked at all this week about this. So we are hoping to connect and have an interesting, enlightening conversation. But we did come up with a topic, and it was your topic. And it's so perfect for these times because everybody in the world is thinking about getting vaccinated, and we are concerned about this darn pandemic that has been affecting all of our lives for the last year. So we want to get a vaccine because we want to be healthy. We want to feel good and know we're not going to get sick. So you came up with the idea of what if we could get a vaccine for insecurity? And as bizarre as that sounds, if you think it through, wouldn't that be wonderful? Because insecurity causes so much pain. It causes people to be depressed, to be miserable. It causes breakups of relationships. It causes people to go off their goals and their path of life and not do the things that they were meant to do and capable of doing. There's so much heartache and hardship that comes from insecurity. If we really could get a vaccine for that, we would be so much better off. So I think it's a brilliant topic. I thank you for coming up with that as I've thought about it. So let's really dissect insecurity, because when they came up with a vaccine for COVID-19, they had to go in a laboratory and dissect what is in COVID-19. And that's how they came up with the vaccines. So we need to do the same thing. We need to really figure out what insecurity is and why we have it. So let's start with that, Ratanjit. Why do we all have so much insecurity? Even the most confident, successful people still have at least moments of insecurity.
Well, see, we have expectations, and things don't come through the expectation. And another thing which we do is we live mostly in the past, and it depends on what our past have been. We suddenly see this is going to happen again. We do not wipe out the past and live in the present. And one of the person I have come across in my life, I was blessed and I'm grateful. And that person I know was the most secure person I came across. And that was my father. And under no circumstance he would be worried, or worry is a direct measure of insecurity. It results into worries. When we are worried, we are insecure about something. And and so I've never seen my dad worried. And even when something really bad happens, I saw him in action mode rather than in a worry mode. And in our family, if any tragedy would take place, somebody passed away or something, the whole family could count on my dad to take care of the situation, make sure everybody has proper care, and everybody consoled. And somehow or other, I remember an incident that there was a bank, a private bank, and which failed. There was a news in the newspaper. I read that in the morning that this bank failed. And I looked at dad and he says, well, I need to take care of few people. It, And I realized that some of his money was in that bank. So instead of worrying about him, he was worried about this person who is a single mom, and she had some money in the bank. So she immediately went to her and found out whether she's going to be okay, and with the news and all that. So that was his basic nature. So what I learned from him was two things. He was always driven by a to do things rather than worrying. He was driven by the purpose of adding the highest value. And secondly, he was always part in the present. He was, because it is only in the present that we have any control over things. All our worries are parked in the past, whereas we generally, when something goes wrong, we get to analyze why this happened to me and who is responsible for that. We want to punish somebody for that rather than going forward to take care of what we can take care of. So these are some of the things which are the cause of insecurity. See, fundamentally, we are going to be insecure because ultimately we are born to die. So the death is approaching us with every birthday. We celebrate birthday, but we actually don't realize we are 1 year closer to dying.
True. Yeah. Yeah. You said so many things. I try to make as many notes so we can come back and talk about them because there's so many different branches of the tree that you have given us there. I'd like to start with the mind versus the action because you said that's what your dad did. When we talk about words like expectations and worries, which we know are killer words, those are things that we all do that are inevitably going to have a bad result because we know that our expectations can never be fulfilled. It's just kind of how things are. We always are looking and hoping for the best, and we're looking for the best in people, we're looking for the best in situations, we're looking for the best in ourselves, and it's just very, very difficult to always attain that level of the best in life. It's just not the way things work out. So we know we kind of set ourselves up for failure there in mind. And then you have the worries, which you just discussed. We all do it. What if this happens again? I know this happened before. It could happen again. It's my biggest fear and worry. All of these things happen in our mind. They're not real. They're expectations of the future. They're worries of the past repeating itself. They're not real. And yet those two conditions overwhelm us. I mean, they take us out of reality and they put us into this fake world that we needlessly are existing in. How do we overcome that? How do we prevent ourselves from being stuck in these worlds that don't even exist?
See, it's like when you go to, we're going to go to Mars, for example,
Okay.
or you go to moon or wherever, you go to a new space, new place. And first of all your expectations are just wish list. You have never been there. You don't know what is out there. And you are sent on a mission and you are told that we want to explore. So we want to gather samples. We want to note as much as we can so we understand what the planet is, how that works. So astronaut never gets disappointed. They are not worried. They are not, all these. So they go for exploration to add the highest value. we don't realize that we are sent also on an exploration on this earth. And instead of exploring, instead of adding the highest value, you get parked in expectations. This is what I want in my life. And most of those expectations are controlled by your five senses. What tastes good, what looks good, that's what you want. You're all part in entertaining and satisfying the need of these five senses all your life. And that, whereas we are sent here for a purpose. Now this earth is already explored, so we are now sent here to make this world as a better place. That is the only reason you are placed here on earth. If we continue to focus on how do I make this world as a better place, you are going to engage in amazing creativity and you are going to always have satisfaction, because when you are in the creative mode, you enjoy it.
I think you just came up with the title of your next book, Exploration, Not Expectation.
Yes.
And I've never, until you said those two words together, I've never put them together, but it is perfect. You're exactly right. Expectation, we go into things with a preset mindset of what it's going to be and what's going to happen and how it's going to affect us, most importantly. And if you're on an exploration mission, you are totally casting that aside because you're admitting, I don't know what I'm going to see. I don't know what's going to happen. And it puts me into a different state of mind in terms of my openness to anything I find. And that is so beautiful to think that if we could live a life of exploration instead of expectation, how much better it would be for us. I mean, I know it would add a lot more value too, but it would also be so much better for us individually because we wouldn't be burdened by the expectation part of our life that really does impact us.
And also there is another thing. When a child is born, child has no history, is a brand new human spirit which comes on earth.
Mm-hmm.
We label that person with history. Say you are a black person, this is your history. You are an Indian, this is your history. You are an Asian, you are an American, this is your history. You had nothing to do with that.
Right.
Suddenly, you become prejudiced, you become laden with your decision are tainted, whereas the role of history is what has happened, how we have to learn the way to add value rather than subtracting value, where in our history, what decision made us subtract value rather than add value. That is the only purpose of history. Whereas when we become a victim of that history, that is totally incorrect because you are a brand new person. You have nothing to do with the history.
Well, you are like a volcano today, erupting in all these different directions, and I'm trying to keep notes so I can come back to discuss each of these a little bit more in depth. Let's veer off a little bit because history, of course, is past. We have no control over the history that you were talking about when you're a clean slate, perfectly perfect clean slate like we are at birth with no history whatsoever. And yet you're right, we tag people with history. Okay, you came into a wealthy household, so you're wealthy. Your family's educated, so now you are expected to be educated and successful or not successful. Your family is homeless, so you have that history, whatever it might be, that is attached to these people so unfairly. And then we do have our own history of things that we do. Okay, we had a path that wasn't successful, that maybe, you know, whatever mistakes we made is our history. So all of that together is affecting our security level then. And that's our topic today, of being insecure.
It robs you. It robs you of your security.
Yeah, we're dwelling on the past. And again, when we talk about things that don't matter, when we just talked about exploration and expectations, we talked that through, and we says the expectation portion doesn't matter to live in that. It's a fake world. It's also really a fake world to live in the history. Yes, it happened, but it doesn't need to affect where we're going.
Yes.
And so I think one by one, and we're about to take our first break, but one by one, maybe what we can do today is try to eliminate the things that we think are so important in our life, and we base our life on those certain aspects, and they really don't matter. And if we can overcome this list of these things, perhaps that we can create, maybe those can all be part of our vaccine. Okay, so that we find out what needs to go into that shot. I'm worried though that, you know, the current shots that we're using, you either get one dose or two. I'm worried that this vaccine that we're talking about, it might need to be given weekly, every Saturday morning on the radio show. For the rest of our lives, we might need to have this vaccine. I'll need it for sure. This is Stress-Free Living today with Ray Samich, yours truly, and Ratanjit and we are again on Zoom today. We have a number of people that are joining us on the call, although they have their cameras off, and that's not fair, Ratanjit. They get to see us, but we don't get to see them. So we would love to see what they look like here this morning and who they are, and watch their beautiful faces. So please feel free to put your cameras on. Thank you. They're listening to me. Nobody listens to me. Thank you. That's wonderful. We'll be right back on this edition of Stress-Free Living. All right. Welcome, everybody. Good to have all of you on our show. And
can you open up your mics?
I'm going to try to, yeah, please.
Give us
Everybody, I'm trying to find the best way to do this for everybody. I'm doing it individually, but if you've all been asked to unmute, and so if you would like to talk with us, please feel free. We have a couple minutes. Anybody? Just speak if you would like to. Open up, unmute. It's okay if you don't want to. No expectations, right, Ratanjit?
No expectations.
All right.
I want to say something.
Please.
Go ahead.
Fear is there all the time from birth.
What?
Say that again. We didn't hear you.
And from birth to death.
We missed you. What did you say?
You're only
Fear.
here. Go ahead.
Fear is there all the time.
Fear.
Yeah.
Yes.
From birth to death.
Yes.
So certain things are inbuilt, I suppose.
Yep.
We
Okay.
can come back, talk about fear. That's one of the things on the list. I think you're right. We need to try to eliminate. Can we eliminate fear in our life? Ratanjit, we can talk about that.
Yes, let's talk about that.
We'll add that one to our list for the ingredients in the vaccine. It's good. And
insecurity causes fear. That's the outcome of that. It causes worries. It causes fear. That's what-
or does fear cause insecurity?
Both.
Both. Okay. So that's the question. How do we get rid of it? On what comes first, the chicken or the egg, as they say? All right. We appreciate your input there. If you
Are both different, or there is some correlation?
Yeah, good. We'll talk about that.
okay,
Very good.
good idea. Anybody else want to add anything here? We are back on Stress Free Living. Ray Samich and Ratanjit Sandhi with you today, and we are interacting with some of our Zoom audience. And if you would like to be a part of that, we are effective for next week. We're going to put that onto our Facebook page at WINT Radio and let you listen to or actually be part of our future shows. So if you would like to be a part of it on the Zoom platform, you're welcome to. It will continue, of course, also on radio, AM, FM radio, 101.5 on the FM, 1330 AM for our Northeast Ohio listeners, and anywhere in the world at wintradio.com. If you are one of the, what was the latest number I heard? I mean, just incredible, 90 million, I believe, home smart speakers are out there right now in people's homes. Google Home and Alexa, Amazon speakers, 90 million. All you have to do is say, play WINT. And matter of fact, my unit here right next door just suddenly is going to play. I have to turn that off. You can actually hear it. Alexa, stop. That's how easy it is, even if you don't want to hear it. Ratanjit, during the break, one of our listeners asked about fear. And that is something we all know causes insecurity. So let's talk about fear a little bit. That is, gosh, it's a condition that just overwhelms so many people. They are afraid to leave their house. They're afraid something will happen to their children. They're afraid that they'll lose their job. They're afraid that they won't have any money to pay their bills. Why is there so much fear in the world? The list goes on and on and on. Afraid that people will break into their house, afraid of car accidents, rioting in the streets that are going to affect them. They live in this fear mode. Why do we do that?
See, if you haven't climbed the mountain, and if your friend who is a professional mountain climber convinces you, Ray, this is phenomenal, you would enjoy this. And so you are now geared up for mountain climbing, and it's a steep mountain. And when you go up and you look down, gosh, you are scared to death.
Yeah.
You're afraid. You're so, why are you going to fall? So this person, your friend says, only look up where we are going. Don't look down. And your fear is related to looking down where you can fall. Your security comes from focusing on where you want to go. Fundamentally, that is how it happens in our life. We are always afraid what is going to happen to us, rather than focusing on what I can do, what I'm here to do. So if you are sent on a mission to moon, and you are going to come back, and only the NASA is going to tell you when you can come back. So one day NASA is going to call you, say the time to come back. So you come back. So we are similarly here for a short time. We don't know when NASA is going to call us back. But in that period when we are here, if we are afraid of going back, no, I like this place. I am attached to this. And that, rather than remembering why we are sent here, as a child, we should be given a clear purpose in our life. You are sent here, you are placed here, you are fed, you are given education, you are trained only to make this world as a better place. So stay focused on that. And once we are focused on that, our fears go away, because mind can only focus on one thing. Either it can focus on fear, or it can get involved in the creative thinking of adding the highest value.
Two gems there you just gave us, two more gems. Mountain climbing, looking up, and looking at the beauty of where you're going to go, escalating your life to a higher level, going someplace you haven't been before, and the excitement and the wonder of what you're going to see as you get higher above where you are and looking out over the world below. It's such a variation of saying the excitement and the enthusiasm and the positive energy of going up versus the look down that says, oh my gosh, what could happen to me? I'll be done in a moment, and it'll be painful, and it'll be terrible, and it'll be all over. I mean, the extreme variation of those two is just such a powerful image in our brain. Most of us are never going to climb a meaningful mountain physically, but we do climb mountains pretty much every day in our life. And over certain periods of time, we go through tragedies and real strong, powerful conditions that are like mountains. And so we are in that mode. You just taught us something so beautiful. If in those moments, as difficult as it is, if we could look at still what's ahead of us in the world, instead of looking down at where we've been and what those losses are or could be, it's such a extreme variance that we can do every time we go through one of those tragedies and have to climb that mountain.
There is another thing there, Ray, that at best, at very best, we can only always underestimate ourselves. And because of underestimating ourselves, our capabilities, I say, well, I cannot do this. I'm only this. I only have so much money. I only have so much education. I'm born in this condition. So we limit ourselves. And as a consequence, we only look at, under those conditions, the worst thing which is going to happen to us. Whereas we don't realize that we have a direct connection to unlimited resources, unlimited thinking power, unlimited creativity, unlimited power. But those resources only are available to us when we are part in adding the highest value unconditionally. And consequently, you become rich and you become all those things which are running after for is a consequence of focusing on the mission of adding the highest value. And at that point, all these great resources gravitate towards you.
This is a whole, and I didn't get done my other prior list of things, and you just opened up a whole new door to talk about, because we talk about the reality versus expectations.
Yes.
And we already have been so critical of having expectations because they almost inevitably will not work out. Some people could say that thinking that I am unlimited, that I have no limits, that I can do anything, is a very unrealistic expectation. And so you, in a way, you could be saying that you're condoning expectations now, because, and we just talked for the last half hour about how you can't, because expectations are going to cause worry and fear and inevitable shortcomings. And now you're saying, take all the limits off, all the shackles off, we can do anything we want to. And now my expectations, boy, they've gone way through the roof. If I think that I can tap into anybody and anything and do anything I want to do, my expectations are out of control. So explain that to me. How do we not have expectations and yet we can be limitless?
I don't think it's an expectation paradigm here. It is the realistic paradigm. We don't realize the reality of life. That is the reality. And once we live in that reality, then you are given amazing imagination, amazing creative powers. And through those, you construct anything you want. So that is how these things you can capitalize on all your, but remember, if your focus goes down to, I'm going to benefit from it, it is for me, I want to become famous, I want to become rich, this is going to make me all that, then all those resources are not available to us.
All right. So we've put so many things, and I think that's what this comes down to here as we're talking this morning. There's so many things that go on within our heads that aren't real. And then there is the reality that is available to us that we also
We don't call it real.
don't comprehend in this brain. Okay. So we are in such a crazy situation if you think about it. In our brain, we worry about everything unnecessarily. We worry about things that will never happen to us, and yet we're worried that they will. We have fears of the same way, the fears of things occurring again because of history that's in our brain, that has been fed into our brain, that because this is the way your family was, or this is the way your friends are, or whatever the conditions are, this is the household you were raised in, so therefore this is your expectation based on that, and it's in our brain that we can only do this because this is the parameters of life for us. We have all of these different things going on in our brain that ultimately shouldn't be tying us down, shouldn't be holding us back, that are making life miserable for us and causing, causing physical ailments.
Yes.
Taking us to a depression mode where we now have to take pills every day and that are affecting us and giving us cancer and other serious diseases that have been proven to come from these states of mind. So all of this isn't real, but it becomes real.
Yes.
And then meanwhile, you've talked about the reality that we can tap into the world's resources because we're all one and experience an incredibly perfect life while we're here for a short time. And yet none of us realize that that's real. Right?
Yes.
So what a revelation to me, and I hope to our audience, that what we think is real isn't real, what we don't think is real, and no wonder we're insecure. I mean, seriously, no wonder we don't understand anything.
Right.
Because we've got this entirely backwards.
And people listening to us say, Ratanjit, come on. Now, this guy, Ratanjit, who is speaking to you, came to US with just $8 in his pocket. I came here with just $8 in my pocket. At that time, there was no exchange. Indian government did not have enough exchange available to them. So they could not hand out dollars to you. So they limited, okay, we are going to only give you $8. So I landed here with $8 in my pocket. And I started my business with a mindset of making a difference to my customer, to the society, and against all odds, Ray, as you remember, I succeeded and eventually sold the company to Dow Chemical. So I'm a living example of that mindset. And there was no training given to me to run a business in America. I had no idea how to sell. no idea how to market.
But I would like to suggest, Ratanjit, that while there was no training to run a business, and today you can get training, you can get expertise in running a business, supposedly. But what we really need is training for running our life.
Yes.
Okay, because you had that training. You mentioned your father. You've talked many times over the last 25 years about your wonderful mother. You were given training from those people, those precious people and others that trained you in life. That seems to be, in my mind, what we need more training on. Because once we understand how to live our life, then we can do anything. All right, we can run a business if we want to. We can do anything we want to accomplish at that point. But we don't know how to run our life. And when we mention words like fear and worry and expectations, and if anybody just takes a moment, and it's so hard to find a moment of silence, but if you take a moment of silence and you just go within yourself and meditate a little bit, I think we will all realize how much of our life we live in those states of mind. We are constantly in a state, even the most successful, wonderful people with perfect lives still live so many of our days in a day of fear or worry or expectations of things that we can't control. When we come back after this short break, we need to do a how-to. Okay, we need to do a how-to and kind of wrap this up into this little vaccine that we can take so that we can understand where our mind needs to be, where our heart needs to be, and ultimately where our real us needs to be.
I have a real vaccine, which we are going to talk about in the last show.
I'm ready. I'm ready to take that shot right now. I'll roll out my sleeve. I'll get ready during the break. This is Stress-Free Living with Ratanjit and Ray Samich. We'll be right back.
Thank
you. Okay, we are on our break. And I am asking everybody to unmute. If you would like to add a comment now, you're more than welcome to do that. We're, as they say in the baseball world, rounding third and heading home. So we've got one more segment. If you'd like to join, please open up your mic and share. Anybody? We may have put everyone to sleep today, Ratanjit. Good thing you and I are awake. Nope, we're not hearing anything. So I guess we're on our own. Oh boy, there was one point I don't think either one of us will remember. I said I want to make two points. One was about the mountain, and there was something else you said that was so good. And I'm trying to make notes here today, but also keep in the present, and I didn't write down. Do you remember what else you said when you were climbing the mountain and not to look down? And then within a minute or two after that, you said something else that was like a really good little nugget. I can't remember. I didn't write it down. I can't trust my brain anymore to remember things.
Well, my brain is tied up. I doesn't remember.
See, I got to start wearing a turban. Maybe it'll help. It escaped that second thought. When I go back and watch this show, it'll come back to me. I'll say, yes, that was it. That was what I needed to say. I just like to drive your points home because you throw them out so easily and quickly that we don't always hear them, or maybe we hear them, but we don't pay attention to them.
Without you, the show would not be anything.
Oh, no. It would be very boring with me alone. Exploration, not expectation. There is a book there, brother. That's very good. Okay. What a different mindset.
You're going to help me write that?
I'll try. I would love to.
Co-author with me.
Love to. Okay, we're going to try to wrap this up into a nice, tidy little package. Nobody's helping us. Please, all of our audience here, don't feel like you have to leave as soon as we shut down at 10 o'clock. We will stay on the line and talk with you if you would like to. We'll open up your mics and everybody can share as much as you'd like. We are back on Stress Free Living. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Ratanjit and Ray talking about finding a vaccine for insecurity. As the vaccines are, of course, the global headline. Everybody is trying to get more vaccination sites so that we can all get vaccinated and beat COVID-19. Well, what if we could create a vaccine to beat insecurity? Something that beats us up on a regular basis. Some of us more than others, but every day some people experience at least moments of feeling insecure and helpless and hopeless. And so, brother, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I've been invigorated by the possibilities, but I still feel like it's all over the place. So what components should we put into this vaccine? Which ones are vital that we put into the vaccine, and which ones have to we make sure that are not in the vaccine because they're going to hurt us?
Vaccine, what does vaccine do? It enhances your immunity. You become immune to the virus. So we become immune to insecurity. So now what happens is, what vaccine does is it strengthens that part of the human body which gives us immunity. So it really utilizes the human body itself. That's what vaccine does.
True.
So now, to utilize the right side of us by this vaccine, the right side of us is the real us. Whereas we have been constantly focused on the container, the car in which we reside, or the space suit we call the human body. So all our focus is on human body. The human body forever knows it is going to die. It doesn't want to die. So it is going to be forever parked in fear, parked in insecurity, parked in uncertainty. It wants to know that next meal is available to it. It wants to know that all the pleasures are available to us. So until we realize that human body is not us, we are the power which enlivens this human body. And once we realize who we are, in that mode, all the immunity is available to us. All the security is available to us. All the confidence is available to us. All the creativity is available to us. All the resources are available to us. It is only in that real myself mode you can live stress-free, you can live worry-free, you can live fear-free. So we don't go there. That remains as the theoretical conclusion. It is not the real, we don't touch and feel that real us. So we want to tell you how to touch and feel the real us today.
Well, that's kind of what I'm observing with what you just said. For those who understand who we really are, the real us, for those people that have made that understanding and revelation, they don't have an insecurity problem.
Right.
Okay. But we're talking today about people like me who, despite listening to you and loving you for 25 years, still forgets that and still goes into my human mode and goes into the world that I see and not the world that even is. But so can we help for the next few minutes the people that don't have that understanding of the real us, and they're not going to get it in 10 minutes or maybe 10 years, unfortunately. So what can we do if we don't make that correct jump and we're just normal Ray? How do we do it? How do we overcome fears and worries and expectations and all these other things so that we can be more secure? Is there any way, or is it a dead end unless you get that oneness?
No. See, the thing is this: you have to walk through a certain procedure with this human body. First thing, we have to convince this mind of ours. And mind requires an argument. Mind requires a substantiation.
Logic.
So let's start with the logic first. See, if you compare this human body to my age-old example of light bulbs, if you have these light bulbs, light bulbs come in all kinds of colors, all kinds of wattage, all kinds of manufacturers. They produce different kind of light bulbs.
Mhm.
But when the light comes through them, they become alive. When they have electricity in them, they become alive. So when a lit light bulb, if you look at that, that is connected to a single powerhouse. The powerhouse and light bulb have a live wire connection.
Mhm.
So the life in the light bulb is the power coming from the powerhouse. When there is no light, that light bulb is not alive. Right? When it fuses, then all the light does not light it. So it's dead. So when our human body is alive, we have a direct connection to a single universal power. You can, if you are a religious person, you can call it divine, God, or you are a non-religious person. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So a single unified power enlivens all of us. And that is who we are. And that, in that mode, there's no dying. It was there before it entered the body. It'll be there after it leaves the body. It cannot be harmed. And it is not superior or inferior to another person. And because it is coming from the ultimate power source, it has the ultimate universal wisdom in it. It has all the resources available to it because it is the universal force. So once you realize that that's what enlivens you, then this human body is just like a car. Car's tire go bad, you change the tire. Is something is need to be fixed, it has to be routinely checked, has to be maintained. So our human body is just like a car. Eventually, a car cannot work anymore, so we junk it and get a new one. So similarly, human body, when it gets old, worn out, we need to change that. The power leaves the human body, and we call it death. That person died. The person never dies. The person is alive. Person is the power, universal power. So once you understand that, now the next phase is how to experience it, how to live that. So first, the logic you have to understand. Do you have any, am I explaining this logic correctly? Is it clear?
You are. The my problem, the way I perceive the problem, though, is that it is, while this concept to you is so fundamental and so obvious, it isn't to most people. They haven't heard this. Now, perhaps our audience that we're looking at their names right now and not their pictures, we want them to show their video, but that's okay. We're looking at their names. And maybe our most loyal audience on the radio around the world that have been listening for us for years, maybe they get it. Maybe they understand it, or they're along the path to get it. But I have to believe that the overwhelming number of people who live don't understand that. As logically as you've tried to explain it, and as beautiful as the light bulb having to be connected to the electricity source is so understandably logical, we don't live our life like that, Ratanjit. We live our life as a human being. And we're all struggling to do what you're suggesting, which is fabulous. What I wanted to try to do in the next 4 minutes is to say, even if you aren't into the mindset of that where the real us is connected, are there some things we can do with this vaccine? Are there some logical things that we can do, or is it the reality that unless we understand that we are who the real us is, unless we do have that revelation, we will always be insecure? Is that the reality of it?
That's the reality of it. Now, how do we experience that? How do we feel that? The amazing part is, see, we are talking about unconditionally adding value. That automatically happens when you see another person. When you see the power within you, you can automatically see the power in another person. So now, instead of serving a male or a female or a black or a white or Asian or an Indian or American, you are serving the divine power. So you have a higher incentive to add value rather than judging them, and realizing that they are not parked in the same place as thinking as you are. So they may not be seeing you as the power, universal power, as you are seeing them, but you have an advantage. So now, how do we get there? The easiest way to get there is to see that power in us. So when you stand in front of the mirror, and what you see this human body, and you go through your mind, what is this human body capable of doing? It's an amazing tool. This vehicle, which is given to us in the form of human body, does everything itself. It digests food, it makes its blood, heart pumps, and the whole thing is automated. You don't do anything. It's amazing. And then you realize that, boy, I didn't pay any money for it. It's gifted to me. So once you accept that as a gift, that human body is gifted to you, it should bring tears in your eyes because you haven't done anything to deserve it. And then when you close your eyes and look into your eyes, you see the life in this human body. Without that life, this human body cannot be kept for even 1 hour. So when you see the life in this human body, you realize the presence of the divine power in the human body. So if you repeat that exercise every morning, sooner or later, it's going to dawn on you that's who you are. And this is a slow path to get there. But until you do this exercise, and it's not just listening to the show once is going to do that. It is repeating this exercise every single day and be grateful for this gift of human body and bow to the power present within you. You see that power through your eyes. And once you are able to see that power through your eyes, you will be able to see that power in other people's eyes. And suddenly, your empathy is going to be higher.
Ratanjit, we have to go. We are out of time. You lift me up. This concept, this reality lifts us up. And fear and worry and expectations and all those things are in our lives. If this is the only way to eliminate those and eliminate the insecurity, we must find this path. We must start doing these things that you are suggesting.
Give this vaccine every morning to yourself.
We have to go, but thank you so very much, brother. Thank you to all of our audience all over for being with us here. We look forward to being with you again. Remember, we're all playing the same game. Have a great day.
Thank you.